And greetings. Happy Tuesday. Welcome to the Steve Deace Show live and on the air here on Blaze TV radio and podcast. I am Steve Deace. He's Todd Erzin. He's Aaron McIntyre. You are you. Let us know what you think about what we think via the stevedeace.com inbox, which you can access by emailing the show, steve@stevedeace.com. That's DEACE. Like us on Facebook, MeWe, Parler, and Gab, at least Facebook for now. You can follow us at Steve Deace Show on Twitter for now, and Getter as well, and then get clips of the show that you would like to watch for free that are also free of censorship here. When you go to rumble.com/Steve Deace Show as well. We've got a lot going on here on a Tuesday. We have at the bottom of this hour, Bigtree from the High Wire is going to join us. His organization, the Informed Consent Action Network. I remember that, right? ICANN. Yeah, right. Wanted to make sure I got the acronym correct. They are the ones that filed the successful suit against Pfizer, seeking disclosure of what really is in whatchamacallit. The first dump of those documents came out right before we left for our spring break NCAA tournament weekend for me, okay? And we saw all kinds of conflicting reports about, was this in the docu-dump, was it not, right? We were discussing this amongst ourselves, and then one of us got the bright idea, hey, why don't we just bring on the people who did the lawsuit and have them tell us what's real and what's not, right?
Yes.
So we are going to do that here at the bottom of the hour. What is in that first doc dump, I should say, document dump from Pfizer? What's real and what's not? We'll get into that with Bigtree here at the bottom of this hour. Next hour for fake news or not, I have set aside 6 clips that I will let Todd and Aaron thus analyze. One of them, you're going to get a true look at what it means to be a sociopath. I mean, how can you say stuff like this with a straight face and not like have any kind of poker tell at all? Like no remorse, no shame. Like whenever our kids, they've inherited their father's penchant for not being a good liar. I can't do it, man. Believe me, I can sin in plenty of other ways, but the lying, it's like I can't do it. Even if I try, it just doesn't work out. Same thing with our kids. All 3 of them have the same thing. They try it and then they start smiling. They can't do it. All right. This individual in this clip that we will play for you next hour has no such problem. And so we will discuss that and other clips coming up next hour for fake news or not. And then for Pop Culture Tuesday, over the weekend, the most lucrative trade in the history of American team sports has taken place. Thought I'd never live to see the day that something eclipsed the legendary Herschel Walker trade. If you remember that, it built the Dallas Cowboys into a dynasty, but this one does in terms of guaranteed dollars, in terms of total draft pick value. And for a player, we don't even know how many games the league will allow him to play next year, because even though the grand jury decided not to indict, he is still facing 22 different civil suits of some form of sexual assault. So we're going to get into the morality of that Deshaun Watson trade. Something I heard this morning, by the way, guys, is Deshaun Watson's agent had the Cleveland Browns anticipating that now that he's going to go ahead and actively try to play. And so the Texans held him out all of last year, and the league didn't apply any of its behavioral discipline towards games that he didn't play. Well, now that he's going to play, the Watson camp is anticipating some form of suspension, maybe 6 to 8 games, half a season is coming his way. So they've asked the Browns in the contract that he was given. So he's given this record deal, the most guaranteed money ever in the history of the National Football League for a guy that's never been to a Super Bowl and has had to have ACL repairs on both of his knees by 25, with 22 allegations of sexual assault against him in a civil court. So they had the Browns pay him only $1 million this year, so that the league would not be able to fine him 10, 20, 30 million out of that massive contract that he has. So this first year, it's only like $1 million base salary, so that there wouldn't be that much for the league. They tried to finagle the deal to get around the league's suspension, okay, that they know is coming. So we will get into the morality of this, particularly where you and I might be concerned as the father of daughters and what we think about it. Coming up for Pop Culture Tuesday here later in the program. And I can tell already by the look of utter disgust on Todd's face, this will be a Gran Torino conversation we will be having a little bit later on in the program. But before we get to all of that, of course, we begin, as always, with Aaron's rundown of what happened while we were away.
What happened while we were away, brought to you by day one of SCOTUS nominee Ketanji Brown Jackson's confirmation hearing. She's soft on child porn offenders. The left is trying to make you forget what they did to Brett Kavanaugh, and she's probably going to get confirmed. So, moving on. Joe Biden says there's a cyber attack coming.
But look, today my administration issued new warnings that based on evolving intelligence, Russia may be planning a cyber attack against us. And as I said, the magnitude of Russia's cyber capacity is fairly consequential, and it's coming.
He also added,
we are at an inflection point, I believe, in the world economy. Not just the world economy, in the world. It occurs every 3 or 4 generations. As one of the top military people said to me in a secure meeting the other day, 60 million people died between 1900 and 1946. And since then, we established a liberal world order, and that hadn't happened in a long while. A lot of people dying, but nowhere near the chaos. And now is a time when things are shifting. There's going to be a new world order out there, and we've got to lead it.
Kamala Gook update.
The governor and I, and we were all doing a tour of the library here, and talking about the significance of the passage of time, right? The significance of the passage of time. So when you think about it, there is great significance to the passage of time in terms of what we need to do to lay these wires, what we need to do to create these jobs. And there is such great significance to the passage of time when we think about a day in the life of our children.
The snozberries taste like snozberries.
According to Real Clear Politics, former President Donald Trump has the highest favorability rating of any major U.S. political leader. Of course, everybody is underwater. Donald Trump is just the least underwater. Mitch McConnell has the highest unfavorability rating, followed closely by Nancy Pelosi. Locust meet locust update. Former CNN anchor Chris Cuomo's lawsuit against his former employer for wrongful termination is producing some interesting tidbits. Among other allegations, Cuomo insists former CNN head Jeff Zucker took advantage of favors from former governor of New York, Andrew Cuomo. The lawsuit also alleges Zucker counseled Governor Cuomo on how to rebut then-President Trump. An executive at Warner Media defamed Chris Cuomo. CNN anchor Jake Tapper defamed Cuomo. Tapper also provided unethical advice to political candidates. CNN anchor Don Lemon defamed Cuomo. Don Lemon engaged in flagrant ethical misconduct. CNN anchor Anderson Cooper defamed Cuomo. CNN anchor Brian Stelter defamed Cuomo. And Cuomo alleges CNN saw him as less valuable after his brother resigned as New York governor. Red State update. Indiana Governor Eric Holcomb is vetoing a bill that would ban dudes from competing on women's sports teams in that state. Holcomb said in a letter he sees no evidence of unfair advantages to men competing on women's sports teams at this time in his state. One of the few women collegiate swimmers to speak out against the University of Pennsylvania dude swimmer Leah Thomas had her Twitter account suspended yesterday. A group of feminists protested outside the NCAA Women's Swimming and Diving Championships in Georgia last weekend against the aforementioned dude competing against women. Here's what they had to say.
I was historically liberal. I mean, I'm a walk-away Democrat.
I am a lifelong registered Democrat who ultimately feels politically homeless. It really started maybe right before Biden, but ultimately with the whole Biden election, I began to feel more and more disenfranchised from Democrats.
I would say I'm politically homeless now because I don't think the Democrats care about women and girls.
The Democrats are not even acknowledging women as a sex class now. Now men can have babies. Men need abortion. It's no longer even a women's issue.
And finally, this from the Babylon Bee. New York Times announces they have finally confirmed the Watergate tapes are authentic. And that's what happened while we were away.
Nice. Aaron's montage brought to you by our friends over at Better Spectacles, where they are now offering authentic German-engineered Rodenstock eyewear for the first time in the U.S. That's a 144-year-old company, one of the world's leaders with over 500 patents. And before, you couldn't get them en masse in the U.S., and then you couldn't get them for problematic prescriptions like mine. So maybe you had to wear some of the dorkier frames if you had one of those problematic prescriptions, but no longer. You can now get access to those Rodenstock frames. That's what I'm wearing right now, in fact, on the set. And you can do that whether you've got just a regular, everyday old prescription or a problematic one like me. You can get that from our friends right now at Better Spectacles. Go to betterspectacles.com/Steve to schedule a teleoptical appointment. You don't even have to leave your house. You can live there if you want, but you don't have to leave there. It's not an online company with low quality offerings. They're going to give you the same experience online you'd get if you went into one of their stores and met firsthand with one of the best trained opticians in the country. And to get you started, they're going to give you 61% off. And then also they'll throw in that handcrafted Rodenstock frame for the first time for free. Can't beat that. 61% off, and to get you started, as well as free Rodenstock frames when you go to betterspectacles.com/Steve. Again, that's betterspectacles.com/Steve. Coming up in today's overtime. First, it was the Babylon Bee's official account banned or suspended from Twitter. Twitter has told them that if they remove the tweet they found offensive, which just basically restated human biology, they would restore their account. The Babylon Bee said, "We will do no such thing. We're not going to commit to perpetuating lies to get access to your platform." They said this through their Mucky Muck. Is it Seth Dillon? Is his name, or Kyle Mann are the two Mucky Mucks there, right?
Yes, Kyle's the editor. Seth Dillon is the CEO.
Correct. Okay, thank you. And then one of them just got suspended, locked out of his account for pointing out that you can't apparently joke about human trafficking, or you can't joke about genocide, but you can have access to Twitter if you're the Chinese and actively engaged in it, right?
Exactly.
Okay. So here's what this is about. What this is about is no one, and I mean no one, over the last several years. In fact, I cannot even think of a close second. No one has more devastatingly and effectively called BS on the BS of the spirit of the age right to its face than the Babylon Bee has. And the devil, what he hates the most is to be mocked. And this level of mockery has just become untenable. And he can't argue. So he has to ban. We'll get into that today in the overtime. All right. BlazeTV.com/Deace is where you can go, and you'll be able to watch that later today. We're going to record it right after today's live show, and then we will upload it for you later today at BlazeTV.com/Deace to watch on demand later. And BlazeTV.com/Deace is where you can go to become a Blaze TV subscriber if you're not yet one, and get it a discount today at BlazeTV.com/Deace. So the montage. And I didn't know what was going to be in your montage today, Aaron, but it sets up perfectly for what I want to say. Because I'm looking at two stories in particular. Every major political leader in America is underwater. Every major one is. Every one that's known is. And the only reason more of them are not underwater is they're just not known. But they're all underwater. I mean, I saw all kinds of, and I'm hoping that they were meant to be snarky, although sometimes I can't tell. I saw all kinds of headlines over the last few days from our own peer group here in alternative or conservative media about how Trump is now the most popular national politician in the country. I hope that was meant to be snarky. I mean, he's got a -8 net favorability.
It wasn't snarky.
But I have a sneaking suspicion it was not. Yeah. I mean, congrats, bro, for being the one-legged man in an ass-kicking contest. I mean, mooey props, okay, for finding out and learning that in the land of the blind, the one-eyed man is absolutely still king.
I'm not dead yet.
Yes.
I feel better.
Yes. Then you go to Eric Holcomb, the scumbag GOP governor in Indiana. State that Trump won, by the way, by 17 points in the last election. So you can see maybe why he might be a little, iffy on a contested, divisive issue. I mean, it was only a 17-point win. Not a lot of political cover in a state like Indiana, right? Yeah.
The Mike Pence Award for courage and conviction.
Indeed. But this morning at the gym, all right, and I don't want to go full Pentecostal, okay?
But you will if you have to.
But I will if I have to. All right? Because I'm not sure if this is just a personal epiphany that I had at the gym this morning, that I was just like, oh, wow, that makes a lot of sense. Or if I got a word for you today. So I'm just going to lay out what I want to say here at the start of the show. And then I'll let y'all decide if I just went full Pentecostal or if these are my own trite little thoughts. Okay? Things are actually going well. They're just not going the way we expected. Let me repeat that. Things are actually going well. They're just not going the way we expected. And this has been a challenge for us as a species for thousands of years, because we have just enough of the imago Dei in us, just enough ability to forge or fashion some form of our future and current events, that when we have done such fashioning and then things play out in the real and they don't play out the way we anticipated, it's kind of like what Heath Ledger's Joker says in The Dark Knight. Everybody feels safe and secure as long as there's a plan. The plan could be horrible, as he points out. But if it's all part of the plan, then people feel safe and secure in that there is a plan, even if that plan is horrible. There is a plan playing out, I believe. I just don't believe it's ours. And I don't believe it's in the way that we anticipated that it would play out. Now, this has happened before. The Pharisees were the heroes of the story. They traced their lineage back to Ezra. When the Sadducees went off on the social justice tip and rejected the Torah, rejected the idea of a resurrection and a judgment, and immersed themselves really in the political machinations of the time. Any of that sound familiar, by the way?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Two parties, one of them just completely gives themselves over to the spirit of the age in the moment in order to negotiate its way through the world as it is, rather than no longer trying to change it. Does that sound familiar at all?
It's in a ballpark I'm familiar with.
So, yeah. Because it kind of struck a familiar chord with me. Yeah. Anyway, the Pharisees were the heroes. We know of Pharisees, Joseph of Arimathea, Nicodemus, Paul, who actually end up acknowledging Christ as Messiah. But the biggest challenge they had, see, the Sadducees are the ones who said, Caiaphas was a Sadducee. He is the one who says, it is better for one man to die than for our whole paradigm to perish. Continue the paradigm. That's our paradigm. That's a Sadducee thought. That's a secular thought. That's the adornment of orthodox religion, but you have really, the salt has lost its flavor. You've given it up. The Sadducees were politically offended. The Pharisees were theologically offended. We're the heroes. What do you mean we're not good enough? We're the ones that kept the law. We're the ones through 400 years of disbursement. We built the synagogues. We kept the law. We came here. Our forefather Ezra rededicated the temple. That's our legacy. We lasted through Antiochus Epiphanes. We've stood up to Rome. We've maintained our religious distinctiveness. We're the only sect in all of Rome that gets to do that. In all of the conquered lands, we're the only sect that gets to do that. What do you mean we're not good enough? What do you mean we're wrong? Does that sound familiar too?
It does.
It does. Because it didn't look the way that they expected it to look. Because after all, nothing good comes from Nazareth. Things are going well. They're just not going the way we thought. See, the first step to any sort of repentance, revival, redemption, restoration, the first step is the truth must be known. That's the first step. Otherwise, all those things would be attempted and based in a lie. And the truth can be painful. It's not always a warm fuzzy. In fact, it rarely is. We are seeing more truth proclaimed right now in our modern culture, even the difficult conversations we were having with each other yesterday on the show. We are actually seeing more honest and truthful conversations happening in this culture and even within our own media enclaves than we have for a long time. I think we're struggling to recognize it, though, because it's not operating under the paradigm that we are accustomed to. Let me ask you a question. Whom would you entrust your freedoms to? Straight up vote. One-on-one. Joe Rogan or Mitch McConnell? Let me ask you another question. Whom would you entrust your way of life to and preserving your traditions? Tim Pool, who didn't you tell me he started at Vox?
I think so. Vox or Disney, one of those two.
All right. Tim Pool or the Indiana Republican governor? Let's play this game again. Whom do you think you have a better chance of having an honest dialogue about what is and what is not objectively true? John Cornyn, Lindsey Graham, Kevin McCarthy, or Russell Brand? I could play this game all day. We could do this all day. And if we are going to remain in a pharisaical mindset, if we're going to remain in the nothing good comes from Nazareth mindset, we're going to miss what's happening here. A massive paradigm shift is happening. You wanted God to act. He is. Very visibly. But he has no interest, I believe, in pouring new wine into our old wineskins. I don't think he cares about a more revitalized, committed Republican Party, particularly after watching us waste our time trying to come up with one for the last 30 years. Now, I know because some of you still can't think multiple things at once. Save me your emails. This has nothing to do about how you want to vote this fall, the following fall, or the fall after that. Do I think things would be better if Republicans got control of the Congress? I do. Just better is on a sliding scale. how many things would be objectively good? Well, I think people like Thomas Massey and Ron Johnson and Rand Paul and the remnant would have some power to get us to some more truth. That's a good, right? But would policies demonstrably change? No, because they've already demonstrated under their current leadership, they won't engage in the level of fight it would take to change them. They won't do it. They won't do anything to risk any form of a government shutdown or anything else. So a lot of these policies simply would not change. But it would be good for the pursuit of truth. I think we'd get some answers on some things of the previous 23 months we don't have right now, or we'd get clarification of the answers we think we have, but we're not entirely sure of. That's good. That's good. But I don't think the price of gas is halved because Mitch McConnell is Senate Majority Leader now, because he moved down the hall to a bigger office. I don't. And if you do, I'm thinking maybe our show's not for you. Okay, you should go somewhere else that'll rub your belly. There's a lot of other kinds of those options in this industry, and almost all of them make more money than me. So by all means, choose. But we're penetrating sectors of this culture with objective truth we've never been able to reach before. I can't tell you, and these guys are witness to this, how many conversations, private meetings, phone calls, Zoom calls I had with major conservative leaders, major figures in our movement during all those lockdowns in 2020, people who had direct lines to the Trump White House to try to reach them with information. We had no luck at all. Simone Gold sat opposite, face-to-face with the Vice President of the United States and showed him the data on hydroxychloroquine. He was the head of the coronavirus task force, couldn't get him to move at all. But because the truth is getting out, despite Silicon Valley's best attempts. But it's like Jesus' parable of the king who has the banquet, the wedding banquet, and the people he always intended to come. He invites them and they won't come. They won't come. They've got other things to distract them. And so finally he gets so frustrated at the end, he says, you know what, throw open the doors and now whoever wants in may come and celebrate this great event. That's what's happening with the truth. Most people on Fox News don't want to hear it. Most people that you pay money to in conservative media don't either, frankly, if we're being brutally honest. And that's why it's now making its way. The truth will prevail. God is sovereign. It's just going to come out of the mouths of Russell Brand and Joe Rogan now. Or, complete cretins like me born to 15-year-old moms. It'll come out of more non-traditional sectors. If we're willing to see with eyes of faith what is happening here, the Babylon Bee getting shunned is excellent news. Whenever Caesar begins the shunnings, the banishments, he's always on his last legs. That's when he knows his lies don't work anymore, so he just has to ban. He just has to martyr. We've, as a movement, we have outlived how many Caesars, how many Neros, how many Twitters, how many Facebooks, how many Inquisitions, how many Antifadas. We've outlived them all. And long after they're gone, the church will remain, the true church. If we're willing to give up that it has to look the way that it looked in the past, give that idol away. Give it up. That doesn't mean don't have any partisan political activity. I don't know how you would do citizenship in America without any of it. I hate the Republican Party. I still do partisan political activity. But that's different. That's understanding the utilitarian aspects of the moment to a reverence for it. Give that up. Give it up. Smash it. And then open your eyes and you'll see that things are going very well. They're just not going the way that we expected. And to that end, someone whose name I didn't even know a year ago, Del Bigtree, will join us on the show. Stay tuned. All right, back with Hour 2, live and on demand here on Blaze TV, radio, and podcast. Steve Deace here with Aaron McIntyre, Todders, and all of you. Don't forget, you can find us on social media as well. Facebook, MeWe, Parler, and Gab. Look for Steve Deace. Look for @Steve Deace Show on Twitter and Getter. And then look for clips of the show that you can watch for free, which are also free of any big tech censorship when you go to rumble.com/Steve Deace Show. Again, that is rumble.com/Steve Deace Show. If you are a podcast listener, we want to thank you for being one of those. You're a big part of our audience. Please, if you've yet to do this, leave us a 5-star review, hit subscribe or follow if that's the option instead. Thanks to all of you that have done that for us. It's quite a bit of you, and we will take as many of those as we can get. So we appreciate each and every one of you for that. You know, if you are thinking of, particularly now with interest rates back up, all right. If now you're like, hey, now I want to go ahead and I'm looking at a mortgage or a refi or a car loan. You want to, have you seen what the price of used cars have gone, by the way? Up like 41% in a year. So it's always been important to make sure you can get the best terms on a loan that you can qualify for anyway. But particularly with the way things are trending right now, every little bit you can do to add to your score to get yourself the best options and terms available matters even more now, which is why it matters even more now that you check out our friends over at ScoreMaster. I used them last fall to help navigate me to get to the credit score that I wanted to get to for us to have an obscenely low interest rate for our refi. So I know that their information works if you put it to work, as I did. And here's how it works. They give you the information that your lenders and banks and everybody has on you. And nowadays you can, get the Capital One app or the Experian app, and they'll give you a score. But will they lay out for you very transparently why you have that score? And then will they go next level and showing you, here's how you can transparently get to the score you want? That is exactly what ScoreMaster does. Check them out right now. ScoreMaster.com/Steve. It's free to see how many plus points they think they can add to your score. And then you decide if you want to sign up and have them. If that's a good enough offer for you to, hey, all right, let's sign up here and I'll partner with you towards that end. When you go to ScoreMaster.com/Steve. All right, something's getting, before we get to fake news or not, something is drawing a lot of commentary I am seeing today. Can you guys guess what it is?
No.
No? It is the shirt I am wearing. Okay. Now, I typically break this shirt out a couple times a year. Christmas time. Okay. And then the other is spring. It's got, a lot of bright spring colors. And there is, I don't want to spend a lot of time on this, but first of all, to the lady who compared my shirt to a tablecloth, sweetie, I'm 260 some odd pounds. Lots of shirts I wear could be compared to a tablecloth. Okay. But that's not important now. All right. So this is the big debate. Is this shirt a dude code violation?
No.
The dude code tribunal is always in effect. Commence. Is it?
No.
No?
There's many other shirts you wore.
I have so successfully lowered your standards that this can't offend you any longer.
No.
You find I've got far more offensive clothing that I wear than this.
This is totally in your normal ballpark.
All right.
I'm not trying to be a complete and total.
It just comes naturally.
I just don't care. Is that acceptable?
No, see, that's the perfect dude code answer. The perfect dude code answer is, why am I being asked to comment publicly on what another dude is wearing? That is, you have Maslow's hierarchy of needs. At the hierarchy of the dude code, you hit the top. That's the summit right there, brother.
Thank you.
All right, let's get to fake news or not, brought to you by our friends over at Novo. They favor the bold, the strong, and the brave. For your business to break out of anything holding you back, you need business checking as brave as you are from Novo Business Checking. They are powerfully simple business checking. And unlike the traditional banking model, Novo has no minimum balances, no transaction limits, and no hidden fees. Instead of a one-size-fits-all approach, Novo is customized to your business to save you time and to free up cash flow with seamless integrations from companies like Stripe, Shopify, QuickBooks, and more. Sign up for Novo for free and join their community of over 150,000 fearless small businesses who have found the customizable business checking model solution that admires their bravery for being entrepreneurial. Get a free business checking account right now at novo.co. Novo, N-O-V-O, novo.co/Steve. That's novo.co/Steve. Plus, Steve Deace listeners can get access to over $5,000 in perks and discounts when you take your small business account to novo.co/Steve. All right, I've got 6 clips for you guys this week here on Fake News or Not. And I'm hoping we can get through all 6. We're going to begin. The first 2 are the former and perhaps once more President of the United States. We haven't heard from him in this segment in a while, so I thought it would be interesting to include him. So this is the first one. This is Trump on Joe Biden potentially being the end of Israel.
How about Iran? We are told that we're going to be signing an Iranian nuke deal any day now. I'm sure you oppose it. You took us out of the nuke deal. What do you think happens just a few months or year down the road if we go back into that Iran nuke deal and they get a chance of a bomb?
Well, it's the end of Israel if that happens. Israel is, I don't think Israel could actually let it happen. It is the worst deal. And also, you're going to see nukes all over the Middle East, and everyone else is going to get them too. It will be the end because if they have them, Saudi Arabia is going to get them, and everyone else is going to get them. And how can you tell them not to do it?
So why is Biden doing it?
Because he's stupid, okay? Because he's stupid, and because they're stupid. And they shouldn't be in power anyway, but they're destroying our country, and they may ultimately be responsible for destroying the world.
All right. Fake news or not, that's a pretty strong statement. It's also, I thought, very strongly communicated. What do you think, Todd? You want to go first?
It's not fake news that they're going to go after getting a bomb. It's the perfect opportunity. There's so much else going on around the world. There's spotlights everywhere else. You that's the time you absolutely want to take advantage of trying to get it. It's partially fake news, the reason he gives them, because they're stupid. I mean, Biden is absolutely, stupid to the extent that he's clearly being manipulated and willing to be manipulated. But again, this is beyond that. It is the Great Reset in action, and that is far more nefarious than stupid.
I'm giving this an or on the fake news or not. It's not fake news that they absolutely will try to acquire a nuclear bomb. I agree with that. I think it is. You know what? I'm changing this. It's all not fake news. Progressivism and the Great Reset really does a number on a person's brain. I mean, you say this all the time, Todd. I'm not trying to be confrontational here, but you say this all the time. Progressivism is cancer. Progressivism makes people do stupid things.
Yeah.
So in that respect, yeah, they are stupid.
This is off the beaten path, but I have a question. Do we think you can use messaging as an inflection point because that makes your message more accessible to people, even if it's not sufficient in the information that it provides?
Yeah.
Or your messaging just in and of itself could be insufficient. You see the distinction I'm trying to draw?
Yeah.
Okay. Do you think in this case, Trump is calling them stupid because I think all three of us don't believe they're stupid in the traditional sense of the term, that this is demonic.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. All right. So do you think Trump is using the term stupid because he think in the literal sense, in a King James sense, which I think the three of us would all agree to some degree, that messaging isn't sufficient in describing the true zealotry that is driving all of this, right? Okay. Or do you think that is calculated language because it makes
something more complex a little bit more
and more palatable to absorb? Which do you think it is?
Oh, no, it's not the latter. That's the least. Trump never does that. I mean, this is just Trump being Trump. and we need more from him, and it's probably more than he's capable of giving. He's just being.
That's the frustration with it, isn't it? Is that we don't get from him what we need, but at the same time we get from him more than we get from just about any of these other guys with an R after their name. That's the frustration with all this. That's why we're always arguing with each other about it.
Yes.
Because one group, I can be in any given camp at any given time, depending on what the issue is. I can be the guy that's like, I don't know, man, we got more out of this guy, we got anybody else. Or the guy that is like, that ain't good enough. That ain't gonna cut it. Because both of these things are simultaneously and every bit as certifiably true, right?
Right.
You want to add to that, Aaron? You good?
I think I'm good.
Okay. All right, let's go back to President Trump again for clip number 2, talking about the Vladimir Putin that he used to deal with.
I'll tell you something. I got along with him. And look, I got along with him loving this country, and he loves his country, okay? But he's a different person than he was. He seems to be different. Is he
sane?
He looks different.
Is he different.
He's
a
different
solid
person
mentally?
It just doesn't seem to be the same person I was dealing with.
Aaron, to you first, fake news or not?
See, I'm calling fake news on this because there was very early in the Ukraine-Russia conflict, there was this narrative being peddled much in the same way the Ghost of Kiev and all of those fake news narratives were being peddled, that Putin is off his rocker. It was being peddled by the same people who like to peddle those other false narratives, the chicken hawks as they're called now. And so just on that alone, I would say it's fake news. Also, I don't really think that Putin is necessarily off of his rocker. Now, I think all things being equal, which they are not, looking at things in a vacuum, which we are not in, I think Putin is actually acting somewhat rationally. It's in a way that is
as a megalomaniac.
As a megalomaniac, yes, he is acting rationally. It just so happens that in his own mind, he's acting rationally, and he has, a huge army that he's acting out with. So, I'm going to call fake news on that on two fronts.
Is this you saying that, he's acting differently, dude? He thinks that there's a
dementia
patient in the White House.
Sure.
And so the megalomaniac has decided now's the time to do what I always wanted to do anyway.
Yeah, I mean, if you want to look at it that way, then it's a different Putin because he knows that
he can get away with it now.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm fake news for the same reasons I was fake news. I've seen several people in the media try to say this. I think that is part of the overall propaganda campaign surrounding all of this, trying to throw anything against the wall, see what sticks to manipulate us. This is lazy thinking about him just being different.
Is it lazy? I mean, okay, I agree it's lazy, but is it lazy punitively or effectively? Meaning that no man can rise above his own worldview. And his worldview is art of the deal. And therefore, there's no other way for his personal algorithm to compute. I could make deals with this guy and kept him in his cage. All of a sudden, I'm gone, and now the guy's acting. You see what I'm trying to say? That the objective evil at this level is difficult for an art of the deal worldview to identify or characterize.
Well, it's beyond the art of the deal. It's everything since the initial start with the League of Nations and then with the United Nations. A whole notion of peace in our time. What is it? Francis Fukuyama, the end of history. All of that. It's all bunk. What we are coming to realize with a guy like Putin is littered throughout history. He's not unique. Our lies to ourselves about peace in our time is what is unique. So that they just, our current version of reality, which doesn't know what a gender is simply not capable of looking at a guy like Putin, what motivates him, why X. But he is human history.
I tend to believe actually that the art of the deal thing cannot really grasp this type of of evil. Because
evil for evil's sake, that there's no other angle other than just doing evil.
Exactly. Yeah. Exactly. Because I think if you live in that world, if that is your only worldview, there's always a deal you can make. And now when you're confronted with somebody said, I don't want your deal, I don't want to make your deal, here's what I'm doing and you can't stop me, that does not compute. I want to say more about that, but we've got more clips. So I think it's the art of the deal, not being
the best pop culture example I can give to cite The Dark Knight again here for the second time today. It's when Bruce Wayne is thinking very art of the deal. All right, this is just another mobster. Granted, it's more fantastical one, but it's another mobster. What's his angle, right? What's he after? And Alfred begins to tell him the story of when he was with MI6 and they went into the jungle and they had the kingpin in the jungle and that was stealing diamonds and murdering people. And they're like, well, let's just give him diamonds and he'll stop murdering people. And they gave him the diamonds and he just kept murdering people. And they found that he never did anything with the diamonds. And the lesson he learned was what?
Just wants to watch the world
Sometimes
burn.
Some men just want to watch the world burn. Yeah. All right, let's go to clip number 3. This is Fox News legal analyst Andrew McCarthy dunking on, or attempting to, we'll let Todd and Aaron decide if this was successful or not, Missouri Republican Senator Josh Hawley.
And you have senators like Josh Hawley, who really is kind of going after her, saying that when she was on the U.S. Sentencing Commission, that she was going light on these sex offenders, pedophiles, and so forth. So there's a tendency for it to get a little bit ugly as it goes through the process.
Yeah, I think that was very unfortunate on Hawley's part. There is a soft on crime case to be made against Judge Jackson. But I think the suggestion that she's soft on child pornography, when you get, I wrote a column about this at National Review, when you get into the details of what we're talking about, he's not even talking about all sex offenders or the worst sex offenders. He's talking about people who consume images of child pornography. And I must say, as somebody who was a prosecutor in the system, there are a lot of pretty hard-nosed prosecutors and a lot of very conservative, tough judges who think that those penalties that Congress enacted, particularly in the 1990s going forward, were way out of whack in terms of the toughness on the people who are at the bottom end of offenders in child pornography. And I think what Hawley has done is conflate all of the offenses that are under the category of sex offender and suggest that she's soft on all of that stuff. And I don't think the case is there for that.
So Judge Jackson was asked about this, by the way, during her confirmation hearing this morning, in fact. And she says that the reason she gave pedophiles lighter sentences in these cases is because it's from a legal and statutory difference or statutory perspective, it is different when they are using computers to get volumes of child porn as opposed to physical mail. I don't know what that means. That was just the explanation that she gave. Okay. So, fake news or not, I'm going to let you take this one first, Todd. Go ahead.
I think this is largely fake news. At the outset of this, Andy McCarthy, knowing him, a reasonable, sober-minded guy, I can have a hearing about, listen, we've kind of made a legal mess out of this. We have to address this. It's heinous, but the way we did it is actually causing more problems than it is solving anything. I can listen to that, but to try to then lose me on the weeds, on the nuance of things like that,
whether it's electronically or materially acquired, is that what you mean?
Yeah, and that and not giving Hawley's the one who deserves the benefit of the doubt. He's going after child predators, all right? Why is that guy not getting the benefit of the doubt?
Yeah, the benefit of the doubt goes to the judge.
Yes. It's insane.
Who's trying to, what do you always say? Count on the angels that dance on the pin of a needle or something along?
Yes, exactly.
When it comes to something as brutal as child sexual violation.
Yeah.
She's looking for nuance and distinctions where that's concerned. Those are the places we ought to be tempted to throw the words nuance and distinction out, right?
Yes.
But when you stand up and you say, hey, Roe versus Wade, the right for a woman to terminate her pregnancy is the settled law of the land, I don't know why it's that big. If you're fine at that level with murdering children, I mean, why are you really all that, your conscience is really all that pricked and worked up about sexually violating him at that point?
Stuff is exhausting.
Yes, it is. Aaron.
So I think the gist of this is should somebody who is in the business of producing this material, child pornography, be held to account more than somebody who is merely consuming it?
Yeah.
Where in the world would you get the standards for saying, well, that person definitely deserves 5 more years in prison than that? Where does that standard come from? It's all heinous.
What are the people that are producing? Who are they producing it for?
It's totally, exactly. It's totally fake news. This is the most National Review thing that's ever National Reviewed.
Gosh, that's a long list.
Let's figure out just how long. No, reject it all. The premise of this is stupid. Todd is right. The person who's actually going to bat for defense of kids should be the one that's given the benefit of the doubt.
Well said, both of you. All right. Liz Cheney, not saying what the media probably hoped and expected her to say for a change. Watch.
First of all, I would completely stop the negotiations that are underway for re-entering this Iranian nuclear deal. It is absolutely indefensible to be in a situation right now where we're, number one, contemplating giving the Iranians billions of dollars in sanction relief, giving them a pathway to a nuclear weapon. That money is going to be used not only to destabilize probably the world, not just the region. They'll use it to help to fund terrorism and support. It also benefits Russia directly.
First of all, her ghostwriter right now is going through her recent archives of anti-Trump screeds, and is thoughts and prayers to that non-gender binary being. For figuring out, okay, how can I come up with worse things to say about Trump so that I get booked again next week after saying that? So thoughts and prayers to your ghostwriter. But fake news or not, quickly on this one, Aaron, what do you think?
It's not fake news, but she is.
Todd?
Yeah, it's true news. I want to rely on something being actually decent and good in this.
Wait till the next
segment.
clip.
Yeah, so okay, good. Then my instincts are even more right.
All right, we're scraping the barrel, man, when you're like, I just got to align with Liz Cheney from my own psyche right now. Yeah. Yes. Which is, you'll notice the order I put these, and I know you guys would be very broken by the time we got here. Okay. That's why I'm like, and here's Liz Cheney for your pick-me-up, right? All right. Imagine saying this with a straight face.
I want to set up a quick back and forth between you and Howie. The Hunter Biden laptop, New York Times comes out and says, hey, it's legit after all. Facebook was going to do a fact check, never did it. Twitter never happened. And you think nobody has apologized at all for this. They were wrong across the media, Juan, and nobody has said, you know what, we screwed that up. It wasn't Russian disinformation.
No, but I think there's a larger context here, which is that what was this about? What does it prove? Nobody said it wasn't true. That what was said was that you can't authenticate it. And then you had certain publications that said, we have authenticated.
How do you say that with a straight face? Aaron, go.
No.
No one said it wasn't true. We just said we couldn't authenticate it. That was his point of his question, Todd. You guys, they never fact checked it. That was another. What's fact check? What's a synonym for fact check, guys? Authenticate. That was his question, numbnuts. His question was, why didn't they try to authenticate this? And Williams turns around and says, well, no one said it wasn't true. They just couldn't authenticate it. Isn't that what a fact check is? No, actually. What a fact check is how dare you disrupt the devil's Overton window, and we call a fact check on you because you actually submitted facts. That's really...
It's a narrative pruner.
Yeah, that's exactly what a fact check is. We don't have to respond anymore to that. I wanted to see the looks on your faces when I played that clip, like the look you have on your face right now, Ersin. All right. Nobody said it wasn't true. We just couldn't authenticate it. And we never tried. He left that part out of his answer. All right. Finally, we end with Bill Maher.
There's the Republican Party. It used to stand for something, being heartless squares, but something. Oh, and patriotism. They always wanted you to know they loved America more than you. America first. Love it or leave it, flag pin in the lapel, thank you for your service, America. But now Tucker Carlson is literally reciting Russian talking points. becoming so valuable to the Kremlin that they put out a memo asking their propaganda outlets to replay as much of Tucker Carlson as possible in Russia. After the Capitol riot on January 6th, 147 Republican lawmakers in a congressional vote objected to the certification of an election they knew was legitimate. Okay, you can't be the super patriots who love America and also run on a platform of let's ignore the vote. You can't represent a form of government you yourself don't believe in. If you do, then you have to get another name, like maybe the Trump Party. He's pretty modest about putting his name on things.
All right, fake news or not. And I won't even tell you what context I'm asking this, because that's, to me, part of the answer you're about to give. Who wants to go first?
I will go first. I volunteer as tribute. Most of this is actually true news. Now, the fake news part, let's get to that first. The fake news part is that he's talking about Republicans. Well, most Republicans I've seen, especially in Washington, sound a whole lot like Maria Salazar, that Republican from, I think that's her name, Maria Salazar from Florida. We have to impose a no-fly zone. Do you know what that means? No, but freedom is never free. Like,
Just
that's
slogan machine.
Just slogan machine.
Yeah.
Not really understanding that could be on the brink of World War III if we don't act with some form of adult behavior. So from that standpoint, it's fake news. If he's talking about Republicans, meaning middle America, Republicans meaning those of us who are, traditionally identified with the Republican Party, conservatives who feel homeless right now, it's actually kind of true news, because he's talking about a different America than the one that we wore the flag on the lapel for. Thank you for your service, America. We're living in a different time, in a different era, and the government that sits in D.C. right now does not represent us, and hasn't. And we're waking up to the fact that really hasn't for a long time, even when we were still wearing the flag, the American flag on the lapels. So from that standpoint, it's not fake news. It's just not the way that maybe he intends it.
Todd?
This is true news, and it's has nothing to do with the details that he said. This is exactly who Bill Maher is. There are no illusions. He's not Team GOP. He's not Team Steve Deace Show. He's not any of that. He's always thought this about Republicans. And you could still go on his show and you'd say, okay, you want to talk about this electioneering that you think is, okay, let's talk about Stacey Abrams. Let's talk about hanging Chads. What did you say about that then? If you wanted to talk about Tucker Carlson is defending Russia, okay, what about you when you said terrorists were actually brave, the ones who drove the planes into the buildings? He said all kinds of things that if you had, then he would rationalize them. Oh, this is what I was trying to say. And he would try to do what for himself, what he's not willing to do for Tucker right here. This is exactly who Bill Maher is. He's been right on a lot of things. This isn't remotely surprising to me. There's no gotcha. There's no anything. This is just Bill Maher. I am not surprised about any of this in any way, shape, or form.
Who is surprised that this came on the heels of, it's the very next episode after he does that interview with Ben Shapiro. And after he talks about why are we letting, 3-year-olds determine their gender, how much of this do you think is an offering? Weren't we just discussing privately amongst ourselves? How much longer do you think he's going to survive on HBO? How much of this do you think is just time to try to shore up his own street cred, given some of the places he's gone in the last year and a half?
In many, many Democrats, people all left, I think you're right. I don't think Bill Maher cares.
I hope you're right. I hope you're right, actually.
He'd have us on the show to debate him on it.
I hope you're right about that. I hope that he doesn't care. He clearly doesn't care, but he doesn't care, if you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
At that kind of level. I hope you're right. All right, we'll come back. Pop Culture Tuesday is next. Well, if you're a dog owner, you know that pet means more than just food and water. He's part of the family. That's why its health and happiness is important to you. And when it comes to that health, well, chances are it's missing a few things. Same thing with our diets. That's why we take so many supplements these days. A lot of that stuff is stripped out of our food. before it ever leaves the factory because they want it available for mass distribution. And the same thing happens to a lot of the foods that we buy for our pets as well. And thankfully, though, they've now got their own supplement, and it's called RUFF Grains. It's the supplement powder you mix in with the food your pet loves. And if your pet's any bit at all like our pet, Cap, he'll love it even more because Cap friggin' loves this stuff, all right? It is loaded with vitamins, minerals, nutrients, antioxidants, all the good stuff. Mix it in with your pet's food, and with that one simple act, you've helped restore your pet's diet to a more healthy balance. Now, you might be wondering, though, maybe my pet won't like the taste, or maybe it really won't make a difference in our pet. Well, that's where we give you this first 14-day jumpstart bag for free to find out. See if you don't see a difference in your pet in 2 weeks or less. We do ask you to pay for the shipping because a lot of times when we get stuff, completely free, we don't do anything with it, So now you're at least a little pot committed here. You pay for the shipping. We give you the bag for free just to see if it's right for you when you go to ruffgreens.com, RUFF for ruffgreens.com. Remember, they spell it RUFF, or call them at 833-RUFF-DOG. All right, let's get to Pop Culture Tuesday to finish it out here today. We do this each week where we look at the intersection between what's going on within pop culture and then what we care about, what we're trying to conserve as conservatives. And I want to discuss according to everything I've seen and researched, this is the biggest player trade in the history of American team sports. This is even bigger than the Herschel Walker trade. 3 number 1 picks, 3 of them, a second round pick as well, and a couple of other draft picks. I believe it's 6 draft picks in all. Guaranteed money, $230 million guaranteed dollars for Deshaun Watson, who did not play. Now, full disclosure, prior to this sordid affair, I was a huge Deshaun Watson fan. He has an incredibly inspiring life story. I mean, he is the embodiment of the American dream. It's like Juwan Howard, sleeping in his grandmother's, dresser drawer for a crib, inside a Chicago demilitarized zone, and then ends up signing the first $100 million contract in NBA history. Okay. It's that kind of an incredible story. And he had Warwick Dunn, remember, was also involved in Habitat for Humanity and a lot of that stuff. And Deshaun has been in the past. So that's why a lot of people were shocked when early last year it came out and came out and out and out and out 22 times. 22 different women, and there was a pattern. A lot of these occurred at massage parlors or things of that nature. All right, 22 different women came out and alleged that he had attempted some form of unwanted sexual advance to sexual assault. Give me a happy ending, etc., to even more overt things. Or things where it was clearly he was hinting at these things. All right? 22 women have filed a civil lawsuit against him that is still making its way through the courts. The county attorney down there took a look at their allegations, took it to a grand jury, and county attorneys don't, DAs don't typically do that unless they're trying to get an indictment. The grand jury in Deshaun Watson's case last week refused to indict. And so once that cleared the criminal threshold, we then saw several NFL teams come in to bid on his services. He did not play a down last year. He was held out of competition by the Houston Texans because of these allegations, because it was kind of uncertain the entire year where they were going to go or if they were going to go anywhere at all. Plus, they were trying to tank. So they've now traded him. This is the biggest bounty and guaranteed contract in American team sports history. Even without the 22 assault allegations, we are talking about a guy who has already had ACL repairs on each one of his knees. Okay. And as great as his numbers were, I mean, the Houston Texans, his last year as a starter, were not a good team in 2019. Like, you wouldn't foresee Aaron Rodgers playing 80% of the Packers games and they would be like 5-11, right? Would never happen. Okay. So there's a bit of a Matthew Stafford thing there. I mean, how much of it is stats and how much of it does he actually raise a team? But now in this case, he's going to one of the most talented rosters in the NFL, the Cleveland Browns. And they're kind of in a win now mode because it's hard in today's NFL to hold on to guys on a roster, hold it together for more than 2 or 3 years because of the salary cap. All right. So that's why the Browns are like, this is our shot. We're going all in right now. And his agent cleverly had the Browns pay him a base salary of only $1 million for this season, anticipating that now that he's going to play, the NFL will come in and do some sort of suspension. Now, the precedent being cited for this was about 10 years ago where Ben Roethlisberger was accused of assaulting a woman in a bar bathroom, I believe it was, down in Georgia. The DA came out and called Roethlisberger every name in the book, basically, but said, I don't think I've got enough evidence from this witness that I could get a conviction in front of a jury. And the NFL did step in. I believe he got like a 6 or an 8 game suspension. And then it was actually then reduced kind of for good behavior, I think is what it was, right? So there's a lot of thought that that's what the NFL will do here. And that means no game checks. A lot of times NFL players are paid only 2 times a year, with a signing bonus when they sign on, or sometimes a roster bonus in the offseason. But most of their pay is in a form of a game check. Okay. And so in order to not have the NFL taking away a lot of his money via game checks, he's negotiated a deal this year to only be paid $1 million base salary, so that the NFL doesn't have that much money to confiscate for those game checks. So, in a clear act of contrition and remorse. All right. So, for Pop Culture Tuesday, I have 2 questions, gentlemen. With that now context laid out. Number 1, would you have traded for Deshaun Watson if you were an NFL GM? And then number 2, would you have any issues playing with him as your teammate, especially at the most high-profile position in all of American sports, quarterback? He's the face of your franchise now. If you were a father with daughters, would you have an issue with this? Who wants to go first? You want to go first? Because that actually applies to you. Go ahead.
I would absolutely not have him on my team as a GM and set aside this ridiculous deal, which is, probably the most Browns thing ever. I mean, they're just a notoriously desperate organization. They made all kinds of quarterback mistakes in the past. I'm hoping this is another one. I would in no way, shape, or form do this. But the second one, if I was on that Browns team and he came on, would I play with him? Listen, if I'm me, I obviously make my opinion heard, no matter what. But assuming this, what you've laid out is all accurate, he's not very unique in terms of professional sports. There are plenty of good guys, and they're not all a bunch of male prostitutes, but there's guys that spend every night trying to hook up with another woman, paying for I think this, the thing.
Who was the Super Bowl MVP for the Pats a couple of years ago? Short little wide receiver.
Edelman?
Julian Edelman. Yeah, he has a very well endowed Tinder account that made its way into the gossip pages, for example.
Yeah, so I don't I wouldn't be able to. I don't think I'd be able to play NFL football on any team if I had it. Now, this guy's the face; he's the quarterback. That does take it to a different standard. But I don't think you're going to be able to play NFL football on any team if you've got a problem with loser guys who treat women disrespectfully because they're on every roster.
So, do you view, since there was no criminal indictment, you then, and I'm just asking.
Yeah.
Okay. You then view the current allegations in that form of a context then?
Yeah, that's what I was assuming.
You're assuming that if they had real concrete evidence that he had committed actual assault,
yeah,
particularly in today's environment, that there would have been, and there's no, it's not like you're taking the star quarterback off the team. Everybody knows he's not playing in Houston ever again, right?
Mm-hmm.
So you can only gain points here as a DA, right? No one's going to blame you later on that you're the reason we lost our quarterback. Everybody knew he was never playing for the team again. So if they could have gotten an indictment with a baseline of evidence with 22 allegations, they would have. Is that kind of what you're thinking?
Yeah, and in terms of smoke but no fire, listen, again, is it this guy? If he tried to do this to my daughter, yeah, I'd want to hit him. But what happened? Did he make them feel uncomfortable in a way that is inappropriate? Or did he actually commit a crime? we are littered with legal cases, so-called ethical cases, crimes against humanity right now where people were made to feel uncomfortable. And once you see the possibility for money coming in, does anybody think that that's not possible? You know, you got one on this, then he's clearly just a jerk, and he's done this in every city he's ever gone to, and he just really doesn't care about anything other than sexual gratification. So he treats them like a mark, which is again terrible, but not necessarily illegal. This just simply speaks to my point of going back to your two specific questions. I'm not giving him an out. I absolutely would not hire the man, but could I play next to him? I think there's on every team, there's a guy like him already. So I wouldn't be able to play NFL football if I couldn't play with that guy who treats women like crap.
What do you think, Aaron?
I've been just loosely listening into this conversation. I tend to agree with Todd. It would be really difficult playing or being a general manager of an NFL team if you're in the position of, that we having the worldview that we have. First of all, stipulation: every one of us are sinners. Secondly, not all sins have the same consequences. Thirdly, not all consequences for all sinners are the same based on who those sinners are. Kareem Hunt and Deshaun Watson in the same city, there are a plethora. Tyreek Hill is one. Now, by all accounts, it seems like maybe he's turned that portion of his life around. But Tyreek Hill, Kansas City Chiefs wide receiver, he's got a sordid past with just terrible domestic abuse. You can pick out multiple guys, probably a handful of guys on every team in the NFL that have a sordid history and are probably in most cases or in a lot of them treated pretty leniently based on who they are. Are you okay with that as a general manager? That would be a really tough road to walk down. I will just say, in this particular instance as well, I would not be comfortable employing Deshaun Watson. This is a really weird comparison. A little bit of I don't know, whiplash, I guess. This whole thing with him kind of went down the way Ravi Zacharias did. Where I didn't, because of his background. Yeah,
you're right. It's a very similar story.
Because of his background.
Yeah.
I was like, I'm going to give this guy a little bit more benefit of the doubt than I would the average NFL player. And then where there was smoke, there was a lot more smoke.
Hard to do that with 22.
There was a lot more fire.
Yeah.
And I would probably not make this trade. There's also let's just throw morality out the window too. Paying this guy this much, really? Isn't this the Colin Kaepernick comparison that we've made before? Whereas he's a good quarterback, he's not that good to overcome all of the baggage that he brings along with him. That, I think, applies here as well. If you throw the morality question and the character question,
sure, because it's an overall risk ratio.
Yeah.
So Deshaun Watson, let's look at the conference he's going into. Who do you want starting a playoff game? Deshaun Watson or Pat Mahomes?
Pat Mahomes.
Okay. Deshaun Watson or Russell Wilson?
Russell Wilson.
Okay. Deshaun Watson or Justin Herbert? We don't really know because Herbert's not made the playoffs. Yeah. So, but
probably Deshaun Watson.
Probably Deshaun Watson. Yeah, but would you be offended if someone's answer was Justin Herbert? Right?
No.
Okay. Deshaun Watson or Josh Allen?
Josh Allen.
Josh Allen. Yeah. Deshaun Watson or Lamar Jackson?
Jackson.
Yeah, they're very similar. I'd probably lean toward Lamar Jackson, who, by the way, he's got to be loving this deal. Are you kidding me? Lamar Jackson's basically got the same numbers as Deshaun Watson without two knee replacements and has a pretty squeaky clean reputation off the field. I mean, what's his guaranteed contract going to look like, right? But so we just went through the list of quarterbacks that he's got to beat to justify this deal, right? Because this franchise is in a Super Bowl or bust mode right now, right? Because they were in the AFC Championship game just 2 years ago, right? So it's Super Bowl or bust for them. And we just went through all the quarterbacks he'd have to go to get to the Super Bowl. And the only one that we thought we would maybe for sure start him over is the guy that just hasn't made it to the playoffs yet in Justin Herbert, right? Doesn't that kind of make your entire argument you were just making right there? Then you throw in the baggage and everything else. That's a hella risk, actually.
Yeah.
I mean, you have any thoughts on that?
Oh,
when you look at the full complexion of the risk that the Cleveland franchise took here.
Well, that's why it's the most Cleveland Browns thing ever. They're notorious for making bad decisions, but on quarterbacks. But other than that, I mean, that has no bearing. He could be at the top of that list, and as a GM, I do not make him the face of my franchise. I would not be able to look my children in the eye.
Yeah, I agree with you on that. I just haven't covered sports professionally for a long time and then followed it. I just the mind is willing and the flesh is weak. There's a reason why every few years the baseball players and owners go round and around and around, because the owners can't stop themselves from cutting so many bad contracts. All right. I mean, I've been around it long enough to know the competitive ego, the desire to win. It's just all male id, man. All of it is. And those sorts of safeguards are often just completely ignored, which is why sometimes you do have to approach it from an overall risk assessment scenario as opposed to cut and dried morality.
Do you remember the Carlos Beltran Mets contract? That was like the biggest thing ever.
Yeah.
$119 million for 7 years.
Are the Mets still paying Bobby Bonilla?
I believe so.
I think so.
Yeah. All right, that'll do it for today's show. We're back at it again tomorrow, noon to 2 Eastern, right after Glenn Beck here on Blaze TV. Until then, John 3:17.